Tucked away in the Himalayas, the hillside town of Kurseong looks like the perfect postcard of a peaceful mountain retreat. But beneath that picturesque mist lies a dark, century-old secret. The danger here is incredibly localized. It's confined to a stretch of pine forest known to locals as the Death Road. The threat is so widely accepted that the town enforces a strict curfew. Absolutely no one is allowed to enter these woods after 7 p.m. Enter Akshat, an up-and-coming filmmaker in Mumbai, and Kabir, a successful banker in New York. The two men haven't spoken in a decade, but an invitation to their childhood boarding school's 100-year reunion forces them back to this exact mountain. As the reunion kicked off, the campus was alive with joyous alumni and bright colonial nostalgia. Yet the moment Akshat and Kabir stepped onto the grounds, they were completely paralyzed by a silent, suffocating dread. Akshat and Kabir stood on the exact spot of a decade-old trauma they had spent their adult lives trying to outrun. Their return to Kurseong meant finally confronting the specific shared guilt that still defined their friendship. To make matters worse, the school staff placed the returning alumni in the vacant summer hostels. Akshat and Kabir were assigned to their exact childhood room, forcing them to sleep in the very physical environment where everything went wrong. The psychological toll began immediately. At 2:15 a.m., Kabir stepped out to the boys' bathroom for a cigarette. In the dead silence, a voice called his name from the darkness. He froze, utterly unable to move. He tried to convince himself it was just the wind or a trick of the old building, but when he finally built up the courage to peek through the crack in the door, he saw a decaying, rotting corpse waiting for him right in the hallway. Akshat was suffering his own torment. Wandering the halls, he stepped into an empty classroom and was violently assaulted by phantom sights and sounds. His old teacher, the recess bell, the laughter of children, before reality violently snapped back to a pitch-black, abandoned room. Whatever operates at Dow Hill doesn't rely solely on physical violence. It weaponizes the specific geography of the campus and the memories of its victims, systematically breaking their minds before it ever lays a finger on them. The next afternoon, the dread escalated into tangible danger. A group of rowdy alumni decided to visit their old football ground, which sits directly on the edge of Death Road. Under intense peer pressure, a reluctant Akshat and Kabir were forced to tag along. As hours ticked by and shadows grew longer, a heavy anxiety settled over the group. The clock was inching dangerously close to the 7 p.m. curfew. Suddenly, one of their friends let out a blood-curdling scream. He pointed toward the tree line, hyperventilating. Staring back at them from the dense bushes was a horrifying, headless figure, watching them in dead silence. Pure chaos erupted. Nearly 100 grown men sprinted blindly toward the safety of the campus. In the crushing stampede at the front gates, Akshat was shoved aside. The heavy doors slammed shut, locking him outside alone as absolute darkness fell over the woods. His heart pounding, Akshat spun around. Standing there in the moonlight was the ghost of a 16-year-old boy in a vintage uniform. The boy simply asked, "Why didn't you save me?" before launching a violent, devastating attack. Breaking that 7 p.m. curfew was a fatal trigger. These woods don't just harbor random spirits. They actively hunt down those who carry unresolved sins. Local folklore had just morphed into a targeted execution. Akshat woke up on a cot in the school's medical room, his face covered in blood and stitches. Standing over him were his terrified friends and the school's principal, Thapa, demanding to know what exactly had attacked him. Akshat finally broke. He confessed the truth about the events of 10 years ago. The ghost outside was Arjun, their best friend, roommate, and the undisputed top student of their graduating class. For months leading up to their final board exams, Arjun had begged for help. He told Akshat and Kabir that a headless entity was stalking him, appearing in their room at night and trying to drag him out to the woods. This chart visualizes the horrific choice they made. On the left, Akshat and Kabir's academic scores steadily rise. On the right, Arjun's mental and physical health violently collapses. The night Arjun was dragged away screaming, his two best friends lay in their beds wide awake, intentionally ignoring his cries, because they wanted to eliminate the competition and steal his top rank. Akshat and Kabir's sociopathic ambition effectively traded a boy's life for a higher ranking on a board exam. In the end, the calculated silence in that hostel room proved more lethal than any phantom in the trees. The fallout in that medical room was immediate and absolute. The alumni stared at Akshat and Kabir in pure revulsion as the principal revealed that Arjun's parents, unable to cope with the loss, had taken their own lives shortly after his murder. Desperate to salvage the situation, Akshat and Kabir offered Principal Thapa a massive donation check. It was coldly ignored. Alienated and despised by everyone they grew up with, the two men left the campus, promising never to speak to one another again. But the tragedy runs much deeper than a single decade. 100 years ago, when the school was first founded, a criminal decapitated a young child near Death Road. That original brutal act initiated a century-long cycle of supernatural violence in the forest. Arjun's spirit now exists as a permanent extension of this century-long cycle of violence. Because of the betrayal, he remains trapped in the Kurseong woods, alongside the very entity that took his life. Kurseong is undeniably a beautiful place, but that beauty is a dangerous facade. Because once the sun sets and the curfew takes effect, the landscape drops its disguise. It becomes a permanent prison for the dead, and a perfect, terrifying mirror for the guilt carried by the living.